Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Jones, Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Missouri State University. The Alumni Association is the organization through which Missouri State students continue their connection with MSU when they leave the university. The Alumni Association is a non-dues paying organization, and all of our alumni are viewed as members. If you're new to our series, BearTalks webinars are monthly professional development sessions now available in a virtual format. So how today's webinar will work. We can't see or hear you. You'll use the Q&A feature to type in your questions, and the majority of the Q&A will be taking place at the end of the presentation. Our panelist, Randy Mays, is graciously giving of his time to provide alumni and friends with general information and is not here to specifically promote his business and the services during this webinar. We will share Randy's contact information though in follow-up communication that will be sent out by me this afternoon, and today's session is being recorded. Unfortunately, due to time limitations, we may not get to all of our questions. So 1 in 4 employees will leave their job annually, and turnover is expensive, $680 billion to be specific, according to the 2018 Retention Report, Truth and Trends in Turnover. Today's session will focus on attracting and keeping good employees, as well as building results-driven teams. Our panelist, Randy Mays, is an alumnus and professional certified coach. Randy is the owner of Drive Leadership Group and previously co-founder and CEO of People-Centric Consulting Group located in Springfield, Missouri. Randy has worked with businesses across the country to create, build, and maintain healthy, high-performance organizations that get improved results. He has worked in the organizational and people development space full-time since 2005 as a coach, trainer, management, and organizational development expert. So thank you for being here with us today, and please join me in welcoming Randy Mays.
Thanks, Shelley. So good to be here. Excited to be here with you and all our Bear alumni. So let's jump into this presentation. I'm going to give you an overview of what I specifically do in terms of building healthy, high-performance cultures. We're going to look at some concepts and some ideas, start big picture, and drill down into some concepts that hopefully will help you. If you came today looking for an HR presentation, that is not what this is going to be, but I think you'll find this to be extremely interesting. I'm going to share my slide deck with you. Let's see if we can get that up and running. Give me just a second to transition into this. Always find it helpful if I have both audio and a picture to look at. So is that coming across loud and clear, that slide deck there? That working for everybody? Just let me know, or let Shelley know if it's not. And we're really talking today about how to build a healthy, high performance culture. And that is ultimately the kingpin when it comes to keeping and retaining good employees and also attracting those same employees. Very, very powerful piece of that formula. So just quick overview. This is a starting point. We can only go so deep in this. We only have about 30 minutes. So we're just going to kind of skim the top. But I hope this is helpful in terms of how to build a healthy, high performance culture. And if we had time at the end, we're going to touch base on one of the programs we have called Dream Manager. So I frequently ask people this question: what do people want most in life? And I just want you to think about that minute. What do people really want most in life? Okay, you got something fixed in your mind? Okay, so let's look to our friend Maslow and see if he has some insights for us. And really what it comes down to is it really is about the stuff on the top of this Maslow's pyramid: self-actualization, esteem, love and belonging. That's the area that really truly motivates people over the long haul, not just the short run, but the long haul. And so I will frequently say it's self-esteem, dignity, or self-worth. That's really what people want most in life. Rarely are we focusing on that when we're trying to attract employees. We're offering pay or benefits or flexible work hours. But what humans across the board and universally want is self-esteem, dignity, and self-worth. So I think this little study is very interesting. It was done by the Tiny Pulse organization, and they surveyed 500 companies, 200,000 responses anonymously. And if you look at this list, what you see at the top of this is that when people were asked what motivates you to excel and go the extra mile at your organization, 20% said camaraderie or peer motivation, that connection, that belonging. Intrinsic desire to do a good job, 17%. Feeling encouraged and recognized, 13%. And you can go on down the list. We're at 7% by the time we get to money and benefits. So to put this another way, 93% of the people go the extra mile at work for some other reason than pay and benefits. We spend a lot of time trying to focus on that in terms of both attraction and retain employees. Now, I do want to say as a caveat, if you don't have competitive pay and benefits, that speaks right to self-worth or esteem. So they are important components. They're just not, in my mind, the most important components. So if you want to build a healthy, high-performance culture, then focus on what really motivates people. And, you know, traditionally, we've used both carrots, the rewards and benefits, or sticks, punishment, fear. All of those are what we call extrinsic motivators. They come from the outside in. And while they may be effective in creating short-term motivation, rarely are they effective when it comes to long-term motivation. And that's really what we want. So what we're looking for is intrinsic motivations, that motivation that comes from inside people, that's naturally there, because that's long-term and sustainable, both for our company's sake and the employee's sake. And again, look at that Maslow's hierarchy. If we focus on the top of the hierarchy instead of the bottom, we're going to get much better long-term results. So here are the 6 areas that I have discovered with extensive study and research that provide long-term intrinsic motivation. And so if you look at those, it's purpose or meaning. People want a life of purpose and meaning. Autonomy. No one wants to be needlessly micromanaged, and they want to be able to do work in a way that they see fit. Working in our strengths. Everybody wants to be a rock star and just rock it. Sometimes we call this mastery, becoming really good at something so it distinguishes you. Achievement, all of us are driven towards achievement or having something more. Growth and development, both personal and professional. And this whole idea of belonging. And this belonging is extremely important. Now, you can belong for good reasons or you can belong for not so good reasons, as we see in gangs, where that's the main motivator, is becoming a belonger or part of that organization. And the reality is sometimes those results aren't all that great. So I want to share with you 3 secrets real quickly here, and just kind of hitting the top of the mountains here, but 3 quick secrets that I've discovered on how to build a great culture. And first, it's not about paying benefits. It's not about asking people to do less or making their jobs easier. And it's not about gimmicks and games. So let's look at secret number 1. It's not about paying benefits. It's instead about a shared purpose or a cause or a meaning. So again, we go back to that Tiny Pulse survey. Only 7% of the people are motivated to go the extra mile by money and benefits. And if we think about humans in general, humans are hardwired for purpose. Every one of us, we come naturally equipped that way. We're looking for a purpose or meaning to both life and our work. And then all healthy humans are working towards something. Now, the key is, are they working towards the same things inside an organization? Because they are working towards something. And then gives them something to work toward. And that's part of what we do as leaders inside organizations, is create that shared purpose together. I often will show this picture and say, you know, this is a picture of my best depiction of a depressed person. And if we think about depression's the lack of meaning or purpose in life normally. And if your employees kind of look like this, or your teammates look like this, they may not be rallying around a shared purpose. So priorities that are not compelling for others when it comes to team dynamics. And these are some of the more traditional methods or ways that we've tried to motivate people. Me or the boss making a lot of money or the company make a lot of money. Now think about it. Is that really motivating to most people? I don't think so. And then staying out of trouble, you'll get in trouble for that. Don't do that or you'll get in trouble. That's a telltale sign that there's some dysfunction inside your organization. Making the boss happy, I don't think that works. And then even, back to our Tiny Pulse survey, them making a lot of money is not a key. So ask yourself, is your mission, your cause, your purpose, is it compelling? Does it make the world a better place? Is it challenging? Does it stretch and grow us? Does it build your company or on individual strengths? And is it simple and clear? And so sometimes people think their business has to be a not-for-profit or have some compelling reason that they exist, but it's much bigger than that. It's much more pervasive than that. I've worked with several contract cleaning companies that do cleaning, and they've been able to connect their work with helping the companies they serve do their work better. So in the educational space, if you're cleaning an educational facility, your purpose is to help them teach better by creating a clean, healthy environment for them to teach in. Every company can have a compelling cause or mission. We're just often not talking about it. And then we go back to Maslow again and think about working the top of that pyramid instead of the bottom. Let me tell you a couple stories. This little girl here is actually a Missouri State graduate, and she graduated from high school. She was the valedictorian of her class, perfect 4.0, got a full scholarship, presidential scholarship to Missouri State, room, board. And by the time she got her departmental scholarships, they were actually paying her to go to school. So she got her degree in computer science with a minor in mathematics and physics, and she graduated magna cum laude. So that means she had a 3.9 grade point or higher. She's a female in the computer science field. Think about how much that is in demand, particularly from big companies like Microsoft and Google. They're looking for females that are computer scientists, and she happened to be that. But she currently works here in Springfield for a local company for about half of what she could make working for one of those big tech companies. But she's totally invested in the purpose or cause of her company. Alongside that work she does with her company, mostly Sirius, as the lead engineer, she started a not-for-profit that helps the disenfranchised learn how to code. And so that passion, that purpose, that meaning is driving people much more than money or benefits. Okay, so secret number 2, it's not about requiring people to do less. It's instead about empowering them to do more. So how do you do that? Well, you invite them into the conversation. You let people be part of the real work, not superficial work, not an employee committee on something that's not important, but the actual work itself. So you get them to lean in, and people are naturally curious. You get them to lean in by asking them questions, by inviting them to the conversation. Then you really let them weigh in with their ideas, their solutions, the things that they want to do that will help you move your company forward around your shared purpose. Once they weigh in, they'll naturally buy in. And once they buy in, they're much more likely to stay in. When people weigh in, they buy in. So this guy right here, he's actually one of my clients that I met along the way, or worked for one of my clients. And this company was a manufacturing facility located fairly close here to Springfield, Missouri. They called us up and said, hey, we have this big corporate mission and core values that we want you to pitch to our people, the factory, to get them excited about these so they adopt them. And they happen to be owned by a Fortune 500 company, Brunswick, that owns several of these type manufacturing facilities. And we said to them, hey, we could come do that. And we would be successful getting your people jazzed up for that day, but that's not sustainable. Why don't you give us 15 or so of your rank and file employees? We'll, together with them, create a purpose statement and then some core values that will get them in the game. So we indeed went about doing that. And this 15 rank and file employees, no supervisors, no leads. These are just people from the factory floor. Here's what they came up with in terms of core values. And these are so impressive in my mind. I work with groups of executives, leaders all across the country, And I've not found a better set of core values and a mission statement. So let me share these with you that my friend and Matt and his group of folks came up with. So it's safety, arrive safe, be safe, leave safe. Think about the wording here, quality, build it like you're buying it. Many of these people working on the factory floor had never been in one of their own boats. So quality, build it like you're buying it. Mutual respect, treat others how you want to be treated. Teamwork, it's not about me, it's about we. Communication, we're all in the loop. And positive attitude, feelings follow focus. Pretty impressive for a group of rank and file employees. And then if you look down here at their purpose statement, so understand in this factory, we had grandpa, we had dad, and we had son working side by side. We had 3 generations of the same family in many cases working next to each other. So their purpose statement, and again, this is that group of rank and file employees from the floor. They came up with this purpose statement. It's generations of families building generations of memories. Wow, that is impressive. And they did it. So it was just this group from the floor that we brought together, and the energy that was created around that by getting them involved in the conversations, we got them to lean in, we asked their opinion, then we literally let them weigh in. At the end of this process, most of them bought in a way they would have never bought in if we didn't invite them to the conversation. So I happened to get this email from Matt about 1.5 years ago. And here, Matt was a guy that I honestly think they were ready to can. They were done with him. He was a problem child. And if you look at his picture there, he's got the tattoos all up on his arms. He had an attitude you could cut with a knife. I mean, he was your classic bad actor if we're talking about employees. So Matt, over time, as he came to these, initially that was his demeanor, but he started to warm up and he started to lean in, and then he started to weigh in, and eventually bought in. So I got this email from Matt, and if you look at this signature line down here at the bottom, manufacturing systems administrator. He is running the whole factory floor. He's overseeing their entire manufacturing process from an administrative standpoint. Flat amazing, from a guy who was ready to be kicked out the door to all in company man making a difference every day. And that's what happens when you allow people to weigh in on what's going on. So if you want to engage your people, engage them in meaningful conversations. When you co-create solutions with someone else, there's mutual ownership. And often as an employer, a business owner, or a leader, why aren't they more involved? Why aren't they more dedicated? Why can't I get them to lean in? Well, it's because you need to take the initiative to invite them into the conversation and then really let them co-create solutions with you. And when they do that, you'll get that buy-in you're looking for. So the third secret here that we're going to talk about, it's not about superficial games and gimmicks. And a lot of times I'll talk to folks and they ask me, should I get a ping pong table? Should I get a pool table? Should I get a foosball table? And I'm going to say yes. Heck, they're a lot of fun. And there is some benefit to those, quite honestly. It does create camaraderie. It's a place for people to talk and engage. But what people really want is they want to be involved in the real work. And often we don't do that for them. When we're trying to build a healthy culture, we think it's about making it fun. Well, it's about making the work meaningful. In order to do that, you need to be able to keep track of a score, or if you're winning or not, and it be clear if you're actually winning. So, you can't hit a target you can't see. And for most of us, we're asking for performance without clear targets, and they become that much more powerful if those targets are co-created with your team. And often owners are very afraid. Oh, what if they set the bar too low? I consistently find when you show up with openness and honesty toward a team of people or a staff, when you show up and you let them fully participate, they usually set higher standards than you would ever dare set for them as a leader. It's amazing. So I worked with a company out of Kansas City, and they're a classic purpose-driven company, and they support not-for-profits in the accounting side. This company's been around for 30 years. I started working with them approximately 2 years ago. They got the mission absolutely right. They got that purpose piece right. and they'd had double-digit growth for 30 years, but their profitability had eroded. And so when I started working with the owner, I said, can your people clearly see whether or not they're winning? In particular, what had happened is the labor percentage had went through the roof in terms of how much it took to get the work done. They were focused on the purpose, this quality work, taking care of this client, but they didn't have a visual scoreboard to see if they were winning. We simply created a visual scoreboard for that staff. I happened to be sitting on the guy's back porch last year, middle of the summer. He said that last year, 2020, was the most profitable year he'd ever had. And in fact, that first quarter of 2020 was more profitable than any year he had ever had. And that was all accomplished by just getting them in the game, creating a game or that they could win that helped drive the company's purpose forward. Okay, so I'm going to share with you real briefly a little bit about the actual system that I use with companies across the country. And I hope you can take something away from this that's helpful to build a better, healthier, high performance culture in your organization. So if we look at this, I call this the drive leadership system or the collaborative leadership model. I use those interchangeably. And if we look at that, we start with why at the center. And indeed, that's why my company has the drive with a why. But these three foundational pieces are always in play. It's mutual respect, shared purpose, and meaningful dialogue. And these are critical keys to building a healthy, high-performance culture. And then the process that I always use is collaboration, clarity, and commitment. And I'll walk you through those steps. Hopefully this is some real rubber meet the road how-to material that you can immediately start to implement inside your organization to create a better culture that will indeed both attract and retain the kind of employees that you want. And let me say a word to that too. Typically when I go into work with an organization, there is some question about whether or not they have the right people. I find the overwhelming majority of the time, they already have the right people on the bus. They have just not engaged them in meaningful dialogue around their shared purpose. And that's why there's so much misdirection and confusion. When that happens, when you see that consistently done, everything aligns. And people who are not a good organizational fit for your company, they self-select out. What a beautiful thing when they say, nah, I'm really not interested in that. I see where you're going and I'm not interested. Or they get all in. So let's talk a little bit about our system here. I'm going to jump right down to these three components, which I call my foundations: mutual respect, shared purpose, and meaningful dialogue. So when we look at that mutual respect, people are smart. People are really smart. If you're human and you can show up at work, you're smart. And you're probably way smarter than you need to be to get your work done. Second thing, people are capable. It's just amazing how able they are. I started out in the restaurant and custodial world. And so I hired, managed, and trained janitors. And those people were literally brilliant. All you had to do was engage them in a conversation. And then the last thing, people are motivated. And if we think of the contrast of that, people are not dumb. They're not lazy. They're highly motivated. So shared purpose, that's that second foundational component that I talk about all the time, and really needs to be instilled in your culture for it to be a great, healthy, high performance culture. So shared purpose. And if we look at that, we're asking ourselves, what can we achieve together? What can we do together? And if you'll co-create that with your team, there's natural buy-in and momentum towards that. You don't have to go out and sell it because they're already bought in as they do that. And again, remember, people are wired for purpose and meaning. They're going to have a purpose. Is it a shared purpose? And when you can create that shared purpose, it's extremely powerful. So let's look at meaningful dialogue. That's that last foundational piece. And here's what I find. People rarely disagree. They just think they do. They're not having the conversation. I've literally done hundreds of strategy sessions with all kinds of organizations across the country in this facilitated fashion, bringing them to the table to say, what's our biggest challenges? What's our biggest opportunities? And what do we need to do next? Establishing a list of those together with a cross-functional group from that company. And the number one thing that those companies say, people who attend those meetings say, is they say, I had no idea we had so much agreement, already had so much agreement about our challenges and opportunities and what we needed to do next. Wow. Typically, people think there is a lot of disagreement. What they're not doing is having those conversations. So meaningful dialogue. And then if we look at the process itself, and I use this process over and over again, I want to encourage you, based on the principles you saw, some of the stuff that we saw at the beginning of this presentation, collaboration, bring anybody who's a relevant party, bring them to the table to be part of the conversation. If you don't, they're going to naturally push against what you're doing. Bring the relevant parties to the table. Once you have the conversation, it will become abundantly clear what you need to do. So the second step of that is clarity. Through that collaboration, we reach clarity about our challenges and our opportunities and what we need to do next. And then we ask for commitment. What are we willing to do about this? And let them fully participate in that process. It's amazing what kind of results. So collaboration, get your people in the conversation, talk about your shared purpose. Clarity, identify challenges and opportunities, and then prioritize which ones will give you the biggest return on investment. And then commitment, finalize a plan and regularly meet to discuss the progress. Sometimes we put together a plan of action, but we don't follow up or circle back to talk about our progress. So let me talk real briefly with you about this program, the Dream Manager. And it's one of the things that we have a certified Dream Manager on our staff who actually went to Matthew Kelly's Institute to be trained in how to do this. And it's another approach to getting people involved in the game. We literally take 8 to 12 people from a company through a life plan that helps them get focused on how to build a better, bigger life for themselves. And what this does is when a company is willing to invest in that, it shows that we really care about people, that self-worth component, okay? And it usually tends to be very, very powerful. One of the places we found this to be very applicable is in some of the more entry-level jobs and organizations that are built that way. So like custodial company or restaurant, some of those type, but it works with all humans everywhere because it's showing real concern about not just what they do at work, but their life at home. So if you have any questions about this Dream Manager, please reach out. We'd be glad to tell you more, tell you about how it works. These are just some of the topics that we would normally discuss in those sessions, and it's all built on a coaching premise. So everything we do at Thrive, and I believe very wholeheartedly, you can tell my enthusiasm for it, is about this coach approach, which is much more of a listening model than a telling model. But think about the impact of that based on what we've talked about so far. When people get in the conversation, it changes everything. So a little bit about us, just real quickly, our mission is to help people create and build and maintain healthy, high-performance organizations that drive better results. And what we typically find when we get involved with an organization implementing these principles, sure, it's the right thing to do by people and for people, but these companies almost always accelerate their performance on the bottom line. So I do want to offer to you guys here an opportunity to sign up for our Drive Leadership Insights. Twice a month, we send out some timely tips and insights on how to develop as a leader and develop your people. We'd love to give that resource to you. They're short, concise, to the point. Most of them I'm writing, but some of my other staff writes them too. I think you'll find them helpful for yourself and to coach and develop your employees. So we're down to questions and discussions. So let's make that transition. And Shelley, do we have any questions out there from the audience?
Well, actually we do. We had one that came in while you were talking. I think this is a really, really good one that will apply to a lot of folks. And it says, in what way could the principles that you're talking about be adjusted to build volunteer teams for nonprofit organizations?
Oh, wow. What a great question. And it really strikes to the heart of the content and the concepts that we're talking about. When we're talking about humans, it doesn't matter what type of business organization they're humans and they're wired and built the same way. So I always say that a for-profit and not-for-profit company should run exactly the same way. It should be built on purpose, mission, or cause. And if we engage those people in that conversation and how to get it done, we bring them to the table, those volunteers, that same principle is going to powerfully work. They're going to lean in, they're going to weigh in, and they're going to buy in. And really, that's the heart of what real intrinsic motivation is all about. That's the key. So really, a not-for-profit is challenged to really execute on these concepts without the money. But what I want to tell you and share with you is that it works and it's really powerful. Great question.
Okay, that was a really good question. Alrighty, so what is one of the biggest mistakes that employers make when it comes to retaining good and top employees? I know you've talked about that some, but if you would like to expand on that a little bit more.
Oh yeah. So I think there's this subtle understanding or misconception that I can buy an employee. And honestly, you think about that transaction, people that you can buy, there's nothing good about that for us as humans. So there's a yin and a yang to benefits, high pay, commissions, bonuses. And I'm not saying they don't work. In a sales staff, I have no problem with sales commissions, okay? Because it's a direct relation to what they do. But hear me out. If you ever take those people for granted, what they really want is self-respect. And if we're really offering them self-respect, we're letting them help us drive the ship. And I'm an advocate of that at every level. But if you go back to those 6 key intrinsic motivators and you lean into those hard, you will keep your best people, because that's what humans want across the board. Now, will you occasionally lose some? Yes, but that's okay too. They have another mission, another calling, another purpose. But you're going to keep the bulk of those, and you're going to keep the ones. Let me say it this way: you're going to keep the ones you really should keep.
All righty. All righty. How do you establish trust and respect from your team if you are younger than they are and this bothers them?
Okay, great question. So, the trap we get into as leaders, honestly, at any age, I mean, even my age at 62, okay, is that we need to have the right answers. We need to tell, and we need to direct. What we really need to do is listen and respond. And sometimes, particularly if you're younger and not experienced, that can be a little challenging. I get that. But if you can get out of your own way and engage those people in a meaningful way, in dialogue, in the conversation about where we want to go and what we want to do, and I will literally say defer to them to some extent. Now don't do crazy things. You're not just trying to make them, you're not trying to appease them, but leverage all their experience and time in their industry and what they've done in a powerful and meaningful way. And they will respond really positively to that. Why? Because they're human. Even though they may be older, they're still human, and the same human responses. So it's interesting in this whole dynamic. Baby boomers like Shelley, you and I, we actually would go to work and sometimes do what we were told to do. We kind of expected that, and we were looking to work our way up the corporate ladder. When you get into the younger generations, particularly millennials, they do not want to work for the man. They just flat out, they want a cause or a purpose. They want to work for something worthwhile. That's really a benefit, and all of us respond positively to that. The younger generation will not tolerate the top-down approach. It's a dinosaur. It's an absolute dinosaur. So probably my one bit of advice, and I'd be glad to talk more with whoever asked this question offline if they want. But my one piece of advice is don't try to be a top-down manager. Use your collaborative skills to bring everyone to the table and engage them in meaningful dialogue, and you'll watch them, their respect for you go through the roof.
Great. So something a little bit related to what we were talking about when it comes to employees. This one came in just a few minutes ago. How do you motivate employees who don't have a growth mindset?
Yeah, great question. I love it. So back to that mutual respect again. People are smart, people are capable, people are motivated. And I know part of our mindset and motif has said that's not true, but I'm telling you, after living these 62 years and working with people all the way from the janitor I work with one of the people I coach is a genetic scientist. Okay, uh, I'm telling you, people are motivated. They are smart. They are capable. I always laugh. You know, we talk about the 15-year-old who sits on the couch and plays video games. Is that person motivated? Yes, they're highly motivated because they'll stay there for 12, 15 hours playing video games, but they're motivated for their reasons, not yours. Think about what happens when you get them into conversation. Ask those questions, get them to lean in, then get them to weigh in. All of a sudden, you're talking about your shared purpose and building something together. That's extremely powerful for us as humans.
All right. So how do you, as an employee, even if you have a leadership position, approach your supervisor to utilize positive enforcement in staff communication instead of only noting the items done incorrectly?
Wow, great question. Some people think that negativity works. So here's some really interesting stats from a neuroscience named David Rock. David Rock says that 1 in 13 negative interactions produce a positive result, irrespective of who's at fault. They could be dead wrong 13 times, and if you approach it from a negative standpoint, 1 in 13 is going to get a positive result. And I would ask that leader, do they want a positive result? Now, on the other hand, 1 out of 2, 50% of interactions with other people when they're approached positively produce a positive result. Again, regardless of who's at fault. Play the odds. It's a no-brainer. It really is. If you're constantly focusing on the negative, you're losing. You're losing and your team's losing.
All righty. What is the importance of offering workplace wellness programs to employees? And do employers feel this is a good investment? And how do employees benefit from such a program? Does it help with retention? I know you kind of touched on this somewhat, but maybe a little more there.
And I'll tell you, bottom line, it does, but it's not a big piece of the puzzle. It's one of those benefits or salary kind of things that, can I say it wouldn't help at all? No, it would help. And particularly when we talk about something like wellness or even the dream manager, where you're doing something that's in their personal interest, not just the businesses, it really shows a higher level of personal respect and care and concern for the employee. So those kind of things are indeed positive, but the biggest opportunity is getting people involved in the actual work, including them in the conversation and creating that shared purpose together. That's what really creates great cultures.
Right. Looking from near bottom up, how would one get upper management to consider looking into a program like yours to improve the health of the organization and the involvement of its employees?
Wow, I wish I had an answer to that question. Interesting enough, what I find is that we often do have a lot of interest from people somewhere in middle management because they can see some of these maladies and know that what we do will fix that. I think you need to go back to dialogue again and start that conversation and talk about, hey, are there some ways we could improve our organization? If you wanted to sign up for the Drive Leadership Insights, and as you see those that are relevant for your company, send them to your supervisor or boss and say, I thought this was an interesting idea. Sometimes it takes time dripping on people. One of the things that I always say, these conclusions you come to in life is People do what they do for a good reason, but it's their reasons, not yours. So that boss that seems to be stuck in the mud, who's stubborn, who has a bad approach, in their mind, they're doing exactly the right thing. You know, I'm not saying they're doing the right thing in totality, but from their perspective, they are. So you have to change perspective. And again, if you go back to that process, get them to lean in, ask some interesting questions, let them weigh in, and hopefully they'll let you weigh in this conversation. I rarely find it to be the case that if you'll take initiative around something and go to your boss with it, they'll usually go, oh, I might be willing to give that a try. Could I put together a plan for you? Uh-oh, all of a sudden we have meaningful dialogue going around a shared purpose. That's how I would approach that. Great question, though.
Okay. What tips might you offer if you have a multi-generational staff?
Oh, yeah. I get that a lot, and it's very important to consider. Again, all humans are responsive to this approach. The younger they are, the more responsive they are to it.
So baby boomers like this once they get involved with it. Okay, they love it. Gen Xers love it. Millennials love it. It is actually a working platform that works for all generations. And so part of the reason I'm such a big advocate of it is I see it work cross-generational as actually a system that works.
All right, here's one that's really relevant to our current situation. Is there anything that can be done in a department by management to improve office morale in our current climate of distance communication and staff separation due to teleworking?
Yeah,
Great question. So understand that whether we are physically in a space with someone or we're connected to them virtually as a group, many of the same human dynamics are taking place, and we do need connection as humans. So sometimes connections don't naturally happen in a virtual world. You have to be more intentional about those. So I'm an advocate of still having regular staff meetings, having regular one-on-ones, and maybe you should have more of those to talk about your work plans, your progress, sharing those wins and victories together so you enhance that connection. Sometimes we just feel connection if we're physically around somebody. All right, we see them, they're in the next office. Understand that's not happening in this virtual world, but we can make it happen if we're intentional about it and create more virtual meetings, not long drawn out meetings, but effective, productive meetings. And this process actually works very well virtually. Most of my clients I work with outside of Springfield, probably 75% of my work is virtual. And has been prior to COVID.
Of the 7% of employees who do value money and benefits, how do they fall on the income spectrum? Are they more likely to be lower paid employees?
Wow, I would not have any actual research or stats on that. It would just be an opinion or wild speculation. I mean, typically you find that a sales personality would be more a successful sales personality, often more motivated by money, or a commission salesperson. I always say that while that's okay, that people are motivated by money, people are motivated for their own reasons, not yours. Sometimes we find that if people are too motivated by money, they're not really people we want on our team.
All right. How do you transition from friend to supervisor role on a team as you progress in your career?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not one of these people. In fact, I'm actually against the idea that personal and professional should be two separate worlds. We have one life. It's both personal and professional. I mean, everybody has to establish where those boundaries are for themselves. But if we go back to the fundamentals of what's our shared purpose, are we having meaningful dialogue around the work itself, not our personal relationship, but the work itself? That usually creates better personal relationships, but it also keeps a focus on the work itself. So it really gets down to these fundamental components of putting them in place in a way that's consistent and intentional. And then I'm very much of the mindset of, and again, it's opinion. I'm telling you opinion here, that if you weren't my friend before we worked together, you're gonna be my friend, or we're probably not gonna work together. Life's way too short to work with a bunch of people you don't like. I've always believed that. So, and that doesn't mean they have to be your best friend, but I'm not interested in ongoing internal hostility. Just not a benefit to me or anybody else.
Okay. How about talking about how to handle advancement opportunities in a small organization? Movements in title may not be possible, but responsibility, salary, and benefits are possible.
Yeah, so this is a great forum for people to step up and show what they can do. And I find it's a great leadership development pipeline approach, because what will happen, it will become crystal clear to you who will take initiative and who won't, and who will commit to handle these projects and who won't, and then who will follow through and who won't. So, and again, it really, I know there is some attraction to titles. There is some attraction to money. I recognize that. I'm not just poo-pooing that entirely, okay? But what people really want is self-respect, and they want to be part of a winning team. So if you're part of a small organization, but you're killing it and you're doing great work and you're having an impact in the world, in your space, that's what people really want. That's the real, those are the big motivators, and all that's very possible on a small team.
Okay, now this one came in, I'm not sure if it will be as relevant for you, but we're going to throw it out there. What advice do you have for people looking to switch careers into HR or talent management? I know that's HR is not really your background, but maybe you have some tips for them.
Yeah, I think, as I would tell anyone who wants to make a career change or move up the ladder or get an advancement, is be valuable. Show up and be valuable. Provide value inside your organization or anywhere else. And if you do that, the natural vortex will pull you right up the ladder of success. I am looking for, and all the companies I'm working with and organizations I'm looking for, they're looking for people to make a contribution. I mean, they're just standing there waiting for it. So if you're really interested in getting into HR, I would reach out to SHRM. There's a real active, if you're here in the Springfield area, there's a real active group here. They can give you all kinds of information about how to index, be a part of that organization, get in the flow, and I would go for it. If you're interested in it, go for it.
Right, another one just came in through Q&A. What is the best way to truly look in the mirror and discover your own personal leadership style, and to also realize the areas where you are in need of change and growth?
Oh, wow. Great question. Very, very reflective question. Appreciate that. So, what I will tell you, that your strengths and your natural abilities, your unique intelligence or unique ability, it's already established. It's you stepping back and looking at where you're passionate and where you've got exceptional results. And if you will do a little personal inventory on that, there's actually a book by Dan Sullivan called Unique Ability. Might be a good read for you in terms of finding your unique ability or unique strength. But basically the essence of that is, where does your passion and your strengths intersect? And that is your unique ability. That is both energizing to you and very monetizable.
What might be a few best practices for onboarding new staff to help them understand and fit in with the culture of your company?
Wow, be very intentional in your onboarding process. And if you have a well-articulated mission statement and core values that are inculcated into your entire organization, you actually live those out, those become great touchstones for that onboarding process. And out of that, organizational stories that support that line of thinking. Do not throw them in the deep end and hope they survive. Onboarding should be a very intentional process that takes some time, and it's worth the investment. That turnover, I mean, there's imprinting that happens in the first hour, the first day, the first week, that if not handled well, will set you on a less than desirable course for the rest of that person's tenure there. And you can control and manage that process in a proactive way.
What do you believe are the most frequent reasons that employees leave companies, and what strategies, if any, do you have for preventing that attrition?
Yeah, so we just talked about it for about 30 minutes here. And they will leave if they don't feel like, and I'll use this word, if they don't feel they're special and their company's special in some way. Now, it doesn't have to be some flowery way, but that their company is really doing good work and they're an integral part of making a contribution to that company's success. Those people rarely leave their company. It's people who don't feel that way or feel taken advantage of or misused or misunderstood who leave their companies. So that becomes the key. And that's why this process is so important and powerful, because it naturally elicits the kind of human dynamics that are healthy for us and healthy for our organization.
Okay. How do you attract and recruit employees if you want to prioritize social, cultural, racial, gender diversity in the process?
So your most attractive part of your company is the employees that currently work there. If they're energized, excited, healthy, focused, they're going to attract like kind to that. So that being said, if we really want to increase diversity, for instance, I would start an internal conversation in my organization talking about why that's important and why we would like to move in that direction, and then have everybody be part of that conversation. Now we have hands wide open, we're inclusive, and we're inviting more and more people to the conversation. So that to me becomes the key to that. Anytime we send a dictate down, people tend to become resistant. Okay, we're going to do X, Y, Z. But if we say, hey, I think it'd be a great idea if we did X, Y, Z. What do you think about that, Shelley? Let's talk about it. And you and I work together to talk through it. Now, oh, there's some real benefits to this. I think we could really distinguish our company by being more diverse. How would we put together a plan to do that? Changes everything.
Okay, and I think we just have time for one last question here. How do you distinguish between someone that you as a manager are failing to motivate versus someone that just inherently feels taken advantage of?
Yeah, and sometimes you do run into that. Look, at the end of the day, you cannot motivate anyone. They have to motivate themselves. Just like accountability, you really can't hold anybody accountable. You can think you are, but you're not. The gold standard is when they're holding themselves accountable. So it's the same kind of thing for motivation. And part of that can be, I'm not a big advocate of keeping people on your team forever. If it's not a good fit for your organization, it's probably not a good fit for them. I say all the time, if you're unhappy with someone's performance, you're a leader and you're unhappy with their performance, they're probably unhappy in some way too. Got to have the conversation and figure out what that looks like and how to get that right. But no, they are way more likely to come up with the actual answer than you are. So again, it's engage them in meaningful dialogue about what would motivate them, and then make it clear what performance standards you have. And if you can co-create those standards, that's even better, okay? Because now there's mutual buy-in. And then you keep talking about those. You have a time and a place to meet, to check in and see how they're doing on those.
Okay, well, I think that whips through our questions. Randy, did you have, we probably have about 30 seconds left for you, and then I have a few closing remarks. If you have maybe one final tip or anything that you would like to share that we haven't already discussed.
Sure, I'd love to continue this conversation or dialogue with anyone who has an interest in this. I'm very passionate about this space, this culture space, and building these healthy high performance organizations, building these healthy relationships. Glad to share any information, dialogue, help in any way I can, because that's my sweet spot. That's my passion and my unique ability where they merge. So love to hear from any of you.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and thank you, Randy. We hope that you enjoyed what you heard today and picked up some good information about attracting and keeping good employees. Again, this afternoon, I'll be sending you a follow-up email. We'll have Randy's contact information, and then also that opportunity for you to sign up with that newsletter that he was talking about. We'll also have a brief survey in there, and we'll be doing a random prize drawing for people who complete that survey and include their name. We'll do that next week. We also do, we're also recording the session, and I'll send you the link to where the recording will be. The recording, though, won't be up until probably Tuesday of next week, but this will have, it's a repository that has the recordings actually from all of our online BearTalks sessions. So that's a great thing to check out. And our next BearTalks webinar will be on Tuesday, March 9th from noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And in honor of Women's History Month, we are going to be profiling 3 amazing alumna in our session. And the session is entitled Women Who Rock. So thank you all for being part of today's presentation. Have a great afternoon.